This is John Groves coming to you from my home studio. For today's Bible talk, I want to continue to explore Jesus' statements and actions as they touch on the subject of war and violence. You may be anticipating, to one degree or another, a degree of equivocation on the subject or seemingly outright indifference. There is certainly no absolute condemnation of wars, and there is even an expectation among some of his followers, at least, that as the Messiah, Jesus would usher a final reign of peace, taking command in the field of battle and vanquishing all opposition. Certainly, his many comments during his ministry about the kingdom of heaven left many with aspirations and questions. Today, we continue to review this subject and his more specific statements dealing with war and violence. I'd like to lead off this segment with discussion of Jesus's reported behavior at the time of his arrest in the Mount of Olives, outside the walls of Jerusalem. You may recall that Judas Iscariot, one of the 12 disciples, had agreed to betray him to the authorities. During the course of the arrest, one of the disciples pulled a sword from its sheath and cut off the ear of the high priest's servant. All four canonical Gospels agree on this point. Only the Gospel of John identifies Malchus as the servant by name and Simon Peter as the disciple holding the sword. As reported in Matthew chapter 26, verse 52 and 53, Jesus then says, "Put away your sword back into its place, for all who take the sword will perish by the sword. Do you think that I cannot appeal to my Father, and he will at once send me more than 12 legions of angels?" This is not the commentary on putting away a sword because you are outnumbered and that it might be better to stand down than be killed. It is instead a confident statement of power reserved for possibly a different occasion. Some might well read the comment as Jesus embracing pacifism as a matter of choice. In the Sermon on the Mount, perhaps Jesus's most famous teachings, we have the oft-quoted "turn the other cheek" passage. To help us appreciate its importance, I would like to read it in context. Matthew 5:38-39 states, "You have heard it was said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I say to you, do not resist an evildoer, but if anyone strikes you on the right cheek, turn the other also." The eye for an eye rule, which even today fuels much discussion on capital punishment, was meant as a limitation on the range of potential retaliation. After all, we are often advised to hit back harder than we were initially hit. In Exodus 21, verses 22 through 25, our corresponding Mosaic law reads as follows. When people who are fighting injure a pregnant woman so that there is a miscarriage, and yet no further harm follows, the one responsible shall be fined what the woman's husband demands, paying as much as the judges determine. If any harm follows, then you shall give life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burn for burn, wound for wound, stripe for stripe. Quite a catalog of exchanges there. Modern criminal law requires a showing of mens rea, the Latin terminology representing criminal intent. If a situation of an accidental nature were to generate harm, would the Mosaic law require that the harm sustained be duplicated? It is food for thought as we seek to apply maxims that are not often well understood. Jesus simply avoids the discussion by insisting that retaliation, however severe or limited, ultimately works for the degradation and harm of all the parties involved. We can readily envision blood feuds that run on nearly endlessly, where the participants may well have forgotten or not known why they were fighting. As numerous commentators have noted, living by the maxim of an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth results in a society that is blind and toothless. We will return to our subject next time. Thank you.